I know that you are the rich soil. That's why I know what I speak today is going to bear fruit 160 and 30-fold. Let me give a title to today's sermon. You might be right, but it might be a last rites. Why this title? Because I'm going to talk to you about the war in Ukraine. It's a very important topic and one which the Christian tradition has something to say something about. The late, great Pope John Paul, reflecting on the document of the Second Vatican Council, The Church in the Modern World, says that the church must be a leaven in the dough, must inform the world as to what is right and what is wrong according to the gospel of Jesus Christ. The gospel becomes a guideline, and it's something that the church has to proclaim to the whole world. And so even those areas which we say, well, they're secular matters, well, they're really not. Whatever has to do with human life and human well-being has to do with the teachings of the gospel. Some people say, you got to be careful. Church is trying to take over society, and we hear words like Christian nationalism. They want to take over the country. Well, that's not the case at all. It's not Christian nationalism. What we have is what the late, great Pope said. He said, we do not want to impose, we want to propose, to hear what the Word of God says. And so the Word of God, believe it or not, deals with the crisis in Ukraine, and it is a crisis. It's a time for decision. I want to guide you as to what the church teaches, and then to help you to inform those people who are in authority in our country as to what is right and what is wrong, and what they must do and what they must not do. I am talking about this week because over the last week, some things have happened that add a different flavor to what has been going on in Ukraine. And what do I mean by a different flavor? Things have been happening that we must address. Okay, the first thing is that the United States is supplying cluster bombs to Ukraine. You know what a cluster bomb does? It's a big bomb, but it spreads out little bombs all over the place. And those little bombs can go off, well, at any time. Even when a war might be over, there may be people, children, women, and they might touch one of those bombs and the bomb might go off. So they can cause damage long after the war. And of course, they can cause a lot of damage during a war because a lot of innocent people might be walking in an area and those bombs can spread out over 2 football fields. Almost every civilized nation, I believe it's 127 nations, have signed a pact that these bombs should not be used. They're inhumane. Except 3 nations. I beg your pardon, 4. Russia, China, North Korea, and the United States. Shameful. It's shameful. But we're sending cluster bombs to Ukraine. That's contrary to the gospel. Jesus would never want to see innocent people blown up and maimed. But that's what's going to happen. A second thing that has unfortunately occurred is that the latest numbers are $40 billion have been spent in Ukraine. $40 billion. And there's little accountability for it. Where is it going? They talked about having an inspector general go over and try to discern where the money is being spent. And that was voted down. That's your money. That's our money. Where is it going? Whose pocket is it in? There's something called the military-industrial complex. When I was a little boy, about 10 years old, my father was listening to President Eisenhower's farewell speech to the nation. And he mentioned the military-industrial complex, the dangers of it. I didn't know what it meant at the time, but I do know what it means now. It means that the military and industry are those who profit from war, and therefore it is a political thing. Many of those people who are in power profit from the military-industrial complex, and so many people get rich in war. There's something very immoral about that. It's not just stealing your money, my money, but it is also giving our money away to those people who are making money off the killing machine of war. The last one is this. The president said he's going to send 3,000 more troops to Europe. Operation Atlantic Resolve. I am beginning to become more and more uneasy with the more troops we send over to Europe. Why? It began this way in other wars. Some of you might have read about the Vietnam War. I lost friends, classmates in Vietnam. But it begins by supplying troops, advisors. And then, finally, as the war drags on, troops are committed, our troops committed to battle. And these wars, since Korea, since Vietnam, since Afghanistan, since Iraq, they end in a stalemate. There's no desire to win the war. It simply continues providing money for the military-industrial complex. We could have won Vietnam. We didn't want to. Wasted lives, wasted money. I remember those coffins coming back, row after row of them. I lived in an area not too far away from an Air Force base that brought back the dead soldiers. For what? For what? Remember one mother telling me I played ball with her son. He died for a purpose. That was a consolation. There was no purpose. There was no purpose. The woman never came out of her house again until she died. I know what it is. I know what it is. What happened in Iraq? Dragged on, dragged on, dragged on. Loss of lives. People maimed on both sides. The same thing with Afghanistan. What happened in Afghanistan? Pulled out and left $80 billion worth of war material. What? Our tax money is over there, and the Taliban is using it? Our military weapons over there? Just left them behind? We didn't win. We lost lives. I've had soldiers come to me, Marines come to me, telling me about watching their friends get blown up by landmines, maimed. And many of them, to this day, are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. I've sent at least 2 or 3 of them to military hospitals because I feared that they were going to commit suicide. And to this day, I am told the latest statistics are that we have 17 veterans a day killing themselves. This is the fruits of war. This is the fruit of war. Can we let it happen again in Ukraine? We can't. That's the answer. We can't let it happen again. But if we are not vigilant, if we do not let the politicians know how we feel, it will happen again. And it might be your sons and it might be your daughters who sacrifice their lives and achieve nothing. And your money is going to go into the pockets of those people who make money off of war. Mark my words. What does the church have to say about a just war? Let me just go through this. That way you see the framework that we have to work out of here. It's called the just war theory. Now, there are many just war theories. Augustine, Aquinas, Luther, Calvin, Maimonides, they all have a just war theory, but they're basically the same. I'm going to use St. Augustine for what I'm going to say today. And basically, as I said, the same points are being made. First of all, a war has to be declared by a just authority. In other words, you can't have some individual decide to declare war on a country. We hear about Prigozhin having his little independent army, as they say, fighting battles in Ukraine. Prigozhin could not declare a war. He's not a head of state. But in some places, you will have some kind of a military leader or a general declare war. He's not the authority that declares war. Authority that declares war is, in our country, it's Congress. Congress declares war. The president goes to Congress and asks for a declaration. We've gotten that out of order over these past wars. We call them police actions. And Congress is not involved. When Congress is not involved in declaring a war, the war is illegitimate. Illegitimate. And the president and the presidents have overstepped their authority. And Congress has to reel them in. Number two, it has to be in response to an attack. So we should not be an aggressor, but we are responding to someone who is attacking us to repel the attack. Now, let me be clear with you. Vladimir Putin is a skunk, right? He's not a nice guy. He's not a nice guy. But he may have some points. I mean, if I were Putin, maybe I'd say, hey, look, they're surrounding me here. NATO's got me by the throat. I've got to do something about this. I got to, defend my country. Maybe that's how he's thinking. I don't know. But he is an unjust aggressor. Let's go a second step with Mr. Putin. He's dangerous. Don't kid yourself. He's dangerous. And this guy is not going to sit back and say, oh, well, I lost. He's not. He's not going to say that. He's going to use whatever he has to win the war to save his own neck. He does not want to lose face in front of his people. And so what does Vladimir have? He has tactical nuclear weapons. You say, oh, he would never do that, would he? Oh, yeah? Knowing about what we know about Putin, I wouldn't want to corner him. You know what happens when you corner a rat? They attack. Okay? So let's not kid ourselves. So we have to do the best we can to repel an attacker, but we have to also know who our attacker is and what the dangers are in retaliating and how we retaliate. The third thing is that we have to respond in a like manner. In other words, suppose in this case, the Russians are coming at the Ukrainians with guns, machine guns. Would it be fair to drop a bomb on them? The answer is no. The answer is no. You have to respond in kind. So if you are being attacked, you just cannot decide you're going to use a weapon of mass destruction to destroy your enemy. That is immoral. That's immoral. The last thing is, this is the clincher. There has to be a reasonable chance of victory. A reasonable chance of victory. Right out of the gospel, Luke's gospel 14. If a king has 10,000 troops and he sees another king coming to attack him with 20,000 troops, what does the wise king do? He goes out to negotiate with the more powerful king, or else he's going to be annihilated. Right out of Scripture. And that's one of the big points that we have to take into consideration when we consider a just war. Because if we do not, what happens is, if there's no chance of repelling this enemy, we better negotiate, or else a lot of innocent people are going to be killed. And people are being killed on both sides, in Russia and in Ukraine. I am told that there are over 350,000 casualties already between the Russians and Ukrainians. You think those Russian mothers aren't home crying? Ukrainian mothers and fathers aren't worrying about their sons being shot and blown up? Of course they are. They're human beings. I'm told that over 60,000 Ukrainians have been killed and over 50,000 Russians have been killed. What's our response to this? Let me just tell you what is allowed. This is what's allowed. Humanitarian aid. That's allowed. I got a phone call from a doctor friend of mine a couple of months ago. And he said to me, would you give me a recommendation? I said, for what? He says, I want to become part of the organization Doctors Without Borders. You got it, Doc. You got it. I'm going to tell them you're a great guy and that you should be allowed to go to Ukraine and take care of those people who are wounded and sick. That's a good thing. Second thing, what's allowed? Humanitarian aid. This country is a country that is blessed by Almighty God with so much food and medicine. Humanitarian aid is always allowed. The third thing is this, and this is the most important part of all. When you have a situation like this, as I said, you could be bogged down in Ukraine for years. We could end up sending troops in there. It's to negotiate. It's to negotiate. That's where our hearts and minds have to be, in negotiation. As I said, we might be right, but it might be our last rights. And so you try to bring out of the situation any good that you can. I don't hear too much about negotiation, do you? I don't hear about it. I heard one little thing about it, and it was that President Xi of China said we need to negotiate. Everybody else, NATO, Ukrainians, we're going to win. Let me tell you something. In a war, nobody wins. Nobody wins. And in a situation like this, not only will we lose many, many men and women on both sides, and maybe some of our own men and women, but if we allow this to happen, we are as guilty as those people who are promoting war for financial benefits or for the sake of preserving a nation or a province. In those provinces, those people have to come to a decision as to what is worthwhile for them to sacrifice in order to save their identity, if they want to save their identity, because many of the Ukrainians have great attachment to Mother Russia. I was there, and I know it. So that's the theory of a just war. I didn't make it up. Greater minds than I have made it up. But I told you what is the right thing to do. And I also want you to keep in mind what Matthew tells us in his gospel. Blessed are the peacemakers, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. God love you.